start on your back and place your feet right under your knees. Extend your arms alongside you. See that your thighs are pretty much parallel and roll yourself up. So, starting at your tailbone, coming all the way up until you're about a straight line from your knees down to your shoulders. You're in bridge or Setubandha Sarvangasana here. And take a few breaths in bridge, just noticing what it feels like to be strong in this posture. Noticing how far up your body wants to go. Maybe it wants to go right into that straight line from your knees down to your shoulders. Maybe it wants to be a little lower. And when you're ready, roll yourself back down. Pull your knees into your chest for a moment. You might circle your ankles a couple of times, wiggle your toes, and then drop your feet back down to your mat and try it again. So slowly roll up and notice where the top of this posture is for you. Maybe it is that straight line, maybe it's lower. And one other option you might try, if it feels right in your body, would be to come into a little bit of a back bend here. And you might do that if you feel like it's going to work for you by kind of walking your shoulders a little closer to each other underneath you, maybe clasping your hands behind you and pressing them into the mat. And lifting your hips a little higher. And that won't work for everyone. That for many people that's uncomfortable. Maybe it doesn't feel great in your lower back. But can one of your strengths be recognizing where your body feels good, where it feels like this is something that works for me in this body, and I'm going to say yes to this, or it doesn't, and I'm going to say no. If your shoulders are kind of rolled in under you, you can walk them back out. Unclasp your hands if they're clasped, and then roll yourself back down. And from here, you could bring your knees into your chest. You could try a few windshield wipers. You could do anything that feels right. Just a little kind of palate cleanser in between. In any yoga practice, one of the things that we're looking for is a balance between effort and ease. So being able to maintain some sort of calm, and it's useful to use our breath as a gauge, but being able to maintain that sense of calm or ease and do it at the same time as we're expending some effort and actually working. So when you're ready, set yourself up for your third bridge. And then roll yourself up. And this time, choose from either of those options that we tried before. Or if there's something else that you feel like you'd like to try, sometimes we will send all our weight into one foot and then send all our weight into the other, maybe hovering one foot or one leg at a time. So that's another option you might try. And again, can you breathe pretty fully? Can you breathe through your nose? I mean, you might be plugged up, but if you're not, can you breathe through your nose as you're trying out whatever options you're trying? And then as you're ready, you can release that, roll yourself down, and try any sort of movement in between that feels right. And then take your time coming up into a tabletop position. And if you have blocks, sometimes blocks are nice under your hands in tabletop. If you find that your wrists are uncomfortable, you can always try that. Check in with your back and notice if your back is tending to round or arch. Can you find a position that feels more neutral? So, somewhere in between rounding or arching. That might mean you engage your core, make sure your ribs aren't flaring. And then, as you're ready, extend your left leg back behind you with your toes on the floor. And then see if maybe you could float that leg up to any degree, keeping your hips level. So, you might flex your foot and press back through that heel. And can you still maintain a neutral position in your back? When you're ready, you can drop your toes back down, bring your knee down, and try the same thing on the other side. Think about pressing back through your upper heel and extending long through the crown of your head. So each end of you is pressing away from the other one. When you're ready, you can drop that leg down. And we'll try the other side one more time. So once you have that leg extended out behind you, maybe hovering, you might consider lifting your right arm and stretching that away from your body towards the front of your mat, if that's a kind option for you. And if your arm is up, you can bring it down, bring your leg down, try the other side. So maybe you float that right leg up, maybe you float your left arm up. Either option is great, arm up or down. Leg can be wherever it feels right. You're looking to keep yourself stable. And when you're ready, you can bring your limbs back down. Maybe try a couple of cat cows here if that feels comfortable for you. So, dropping your stomach towards the floor, lifting your chin, and then coming into a rounded back position. As you're ready, come back into a neutral spine position. And you might want to turn yourself so that you're facing the long edge of your mat this time. And I think I'm going to go off camera if I don't scooch myself back. Extend your left leg out to the side and place the foot on the floor. So your foot is going to be kind of in line with your knee, with your right knee. And from here, your back toes on your right foot can be curled under, or your foot can be the top of your foot flat on the floor. Just decide what's comfortable. And then maybe you press your hips back towards your heel and lift them up a few times. Noticing, do you feel a stretch anywhere? And if you do, does it change as you're lifting and lowering your hips? And if this is working great for you, that's awesome. If it's not, you can always, if your wrists are uncomfortable, you can always have your hands on your blocks, and that can shift the weight into your lower body some more. And another option would be actually lifting your hands up and doing this with your hands not down on the mat. And that might feel weird. It might feel good. It will certainly require you to um, be more upright when you come upright, because otherwise you'll face plant. And that's not fun. That doesn't usually work for anyone's body. Maybe do that one or two more times. And if your hands are up, bring them back down either to blocks or to the floor. Pull your leg in. And if there's any movement you'd like to try between doing it on one side and doing it on the other, you might try that. Maybe you send your hips back and kind of over to one side for a little stretch on each side. And whenever you're ready, you can set yourself up to try it out on the other side. So you'll be extending your right leg this time. Same thing, find a position that works in your body. Decide what you're doing with your feet, with your hands, your wrists. Maybe you start sending your hip back and forward. Maybe your hands are down. Maybe you choose to bring them up. And I haven't said it out loud, but there's always the option of trying something entirely different. It doesn't have to be one of the things I'm offering. You might find something that feels really good and really appropriate for you today that is completely different. If your hands are up, bring them back down. As you're ready, pull that leg in. And again, find any movement in between that feels right. Good, also find stillness. Maybe you move into child's pose if that's something that feels good to you. When you're ready, come back up into your tabletop position if you're not already there. And extend your left leg out again this time. From here, walk your hands back towards your body and come up into a tall kneeling position. And once you're up in your kneeling position, notice what it feels like. Is balance an issue? You have blocks, and blocks might be a really great option to have around when you're doing this. If you have blocks, you might place one over on your right side. Lift your right arm to the extent that it wants to come up. See if you can create some space between your right shoulder and your right hip. And that might involve leaning over towards your extended leg. See if you can keep your chest pretty open to the front as you're here in Parigasana or gate pose. And as you're ready, lift yourself back up. Start to lower your arm, and maybe you bring it down to a block, or you could bring it down to the floor, whatever feels right. But come into your side plank here. Your upper arm could be Resting on your hip, you might extend it up towards the ceiling, or you might stretch it up alongside your ear. Again, making the choice according to whatever you're feeling right now and what is going to feel right to you. And another option that you might consider trying would be to hover your left leg. So you might lift it up to any degree. And if you have that leg hovering, another option would be to lift and lower it slowly. And if you're trying that, you might notice some strong feelings in your upper glute. If you're trying that out, lower that foot back down. If your arm is up, you can bring it down. And maybe you bring it right down to the ground and walk your hands over till you're in your tabletop position. Then pull your extended leg in and switch sides. And if you're using a block, take a moment to place that block on the other side this time. So your right leg will be extended this time. Walk your hands back and come into your tall kneeling position. Once you're in your kneeling position, take a moment to adjust anything that needs adjusting. Make sure you're stable. Think about creating some space on your outer side body. You might lift your arm and think about making some space between your hip and your shoulder. Maybe you lean your body towards your right leg, keeping your chest open towards that long edge of your mat. As you're ready, come back up and tip yourself over, lowering your hand down either to a block or to the floor, whichever one feels right. Your upper arm can do anything. Maybe you rest it on your hip or lift it up, or you stretch it alongside your ear, whichever feels right. Maybe you find something else entirely to do with that arm. And then you can stay like this, focusing on balance, core, staying strong, noticing what are your strengths, remembering what are your strengths. You might consider lifting your right leg up to any degree, maybe holding it there, or lifting and lowering. Again, you get to decide and remind yourself where you're strong, not just physically. Maybe your strength is just always knowing where you are in space. And maybe your strength is knowing where you are um, in terms of your mindset that day. Maybe you're a great decision maker. Maybe you're really good at sleeping, and so you're always well rested. That's not me. If your leg is up, you can lower it down and maybe then bring your upper arm down. Walk yourself back over into your tabletop position and pull that leg in. And from here, you might try sending your hips back and over to one side for a stretch. And doing that on both sides, holding it as long or as short as you like. And when you're ready, take your time coming down into a lying position, lying on your back. Place both feet on the floor. Your knees will be bent, aiming up. Bring a flex into your right foot and bring that right ankle over your left knee, just above your left knee. Keeping a flex in that right foot. Start to press your right knee gently away from your body and see if you can feel anything in that outer hip on the right side. And you can stay right there if that feels good, or you might consider lifting your left leg up, pulling it in towards your chest, maybe interlacing your hands around the back of that left hamstring or the front of your left shin or knee. And one other option, which I often forget to offer, is that you can place a block under your left foot if you want to raise that leg up to potentially deepen the stretch in your right hip, but you don't want to hold it. And the block could be on any setting if you're trying that out. But find your version of Suchirandrasana. Go ahead and release that and try it out on the second side. So, right foot on the floor, left ankle over right knee, and then your choice. You might start to notice your breath here. Maybe see if you can take long, full breaths. If you can breathe through your nose, try doing that. If not, that's okay. And you might consider extending your exhales out a little longer than your inhales. You can release that posture and set yourself up for Shavasana. So you might stay lying down. If you're more comfortable seated, you could find a seated position. Whatever's going to work for you today. Find a position where you can feel comfortable and rest. And if you want to close your eyes, you can close your eyes. You could also just soften your gaze. Is your mind wandering? Are you getting caught up in your thoughts? If so, see if you can let them go. Maybe start to deepen your breath. You might find a little bit of movement, wiggling your toes and your fingers, stretching a little. If your eyes are closed, go ahead and open them. And maybe take your time transitioning into a seated position. Or, of course, if you want to stay in Shavasana, you can. Wherever you are, if you want to bring your hands into Anjali Mudra, this is a gesture of offering, pressing your palms and fingers together. And can you remind yourself, what are your strengths? Maybe you had a list that you made at the beginning of practice. You remember that list. And then a moment to acknowledge the practice of yoga as an ancient Indian practice that was shared throughout the whole world so that everyone could benefit. And thank you for practicing with me today.